Today we'll be discussing the revenues and taxation, a deep dive into Philippine public fiscal administration. This slide highlights the vital role of taxes in ensuring the smooth operation of the government. Taxes serve as the primary source of revenue that enables the government to deliver essential public services. These include healthcare, education, infrastructure development, and national security. Without taxes, it would be impossible for the government to function effectively and meet the needs of its citizens. For example, in 2023, the government's total revenue reached 3.82 trillion, equivalent to 15.7% of the country's GDP. Simply put, without taxes, there would be no public hospitals, no free education, and no durable roads. The government's Build program was funded through taxes to construct roads, bridges, and airports. Next thing we will discuss is objectives of this study. This presentation will explore the complexities of the Philippine tax system, analyzing its structure, impact, and challenges, aiming to provide a comprehensive understanding of its role in public fiscal administration. This slide outlines the specific learning outcomes for the presentation, setting expectations for the audience and providing a framework for understanding the key takeaways. To understanding the tax system is essential for grasping how the government generates revenue and allocates resources for national development. By examining its structure and challenges, we can better appreciate the role taxes play in shaping public services and economic policies. This insight is crucial not only for policymakers and public administrators, but also for ordinary citizens who contribute to the system. Next is the definition and scope. The revenue refers to all income earned by the government, including taxes, fees, and other sources such as profits from government-owned corporations or foreign aid. It is the financial backbone that supports the government's ability to operate and deliver essential services. And taxation, on the other hand, is the mandatory contribution collected from the income of individuals and businesses. It is a legal obligation, and it plays a crucial role in ensuring that the government has sufficient funds to provide public services such as education, healthcare, infrastructure, and national defense. To understanding the difference between revenue and taxation is important in public finance. While taxation is a major component of government revenue, revenue as a whole encompasses a wider range of income sources. This distinction helps us see how the government sustains its functions and plans for development, and why responsible tax collection and compliance are essential for nation building. For example, a restaurant business pays business tax and value-added tax, or VAT. This money is used by the government to fund the roads that the business itself uses to deliver food to its customers. Without taxation, the government would not have enough funds to maintain the bridges, highways, and streetlights that we all use. Next will be discussed is the key concepts and theories. The key concepts in public fiscal administration are: first is the public fiscal administration. It refers to the process by which government manages its finances, including the collection of revenues like taxes, budgeting, spending, and financial accountability. It involves creating financial plans, allocating resources to different sectors, and ensuring transparency and efficiency in the use of public funds. Its main goal is to support the delivery of public services and promote economic stability and development. Second, fiscal federalism, the division of fiscal power between the national and local governments. Fiscal federalism refers to how financial responsibilities and resources are distributed among different levels of government, typically between the central, national government, and subnational units like provinces, states, or local governments. It involves the allocation of revenue sources like taxes, spending responsibilities, and intergovernmental transfers, such as grants or aid. The goal is to ensure that local governments have sufficient funds and autonomy to deliver services effectively, while maintaining national standards and equity. This system promotes accountability, responsiveness to local needs, and balanced economic development. Third is tax incidence. Who really pays the tax? Tax incidence refers to the analysis of who ultimately bears the burden of a tax, whether it's the producer, consumer, employer, or employee. While a tax may be legally imposed on one party, for example, a business, the actual economic burden can shift. For example, if a government imposes a tax on a product, the seller might pass some or all of that cost to consumers through higher prices. Understanding tax incidence is important for assessing fairness and economic impact, as it reveals the real effects of taxation on different groups in society. And last is Laffer curve. There is an optimal tax rate that maximizes government revenue. The Laffer curve is a concept in economics that illustrates the relationship between tax rates and government revenue. It suggests that at very low tax rates, the government collects little revenue. As tax rates increase, revenue also increases up to a certain point. However, beyond this optimal point, higher tax rates can discourage work, investment, and production, leading to a decrease in overall tax revenue. The curve implies that excessively high tax rates can be counterproductive, and that finding the right balance is key to maximizing government income without harming economic activity. This slide introduces key theories and concepts that serve as a foundation for understanding the complexities of public finance and taxation. These principles help explain how governments collect revenue, allocate resources, and design tax policies that are fair, efficient, and responsive to public needs. By grounding the discussion in established frameworks, we can better analyze the impact of fiscal decisions on economic growth, social equity, and public service delivery. For example, tax incidence is clearly demonstrated in the case of excise taxes on gasoline. When the government imposes this type of tax, oil companies typically pass on the additional cost to consumers, particularly motorists, by increasing fuel prices. As a result, the burden of the tax ultimately falls on the end users, making gasoline more expensive and affecting their daily expenses. On the other hand, the concept of the Laffer curve is evident in the implementation of the sin tax law, especially in the case of cigarette taxation. When taxes on cigarettes are set too high, they may lead to unintended consequences, such as encouraging consumers to turn to cheaper, smuggled alternatives. These smuggled cigarettes are sold illegally and do not contribute to government revenue, thus defeating the purpose of the tax. This scenario illustrates how excessively high tax rates can reduce overall tax collection by incentivizing tax evasion and illegal market behavior. Now let's proceed in historical context. This slide provides a comprehensive historical perspective on revenue generation and taxation in the Philippines, highlighting how these systems have evolved, adapted, and responded to the changing political, economic, and social landscape of the country. From the pre-colonial barter systems and tribute collections during the Calic Spanish era to the establishment of more structured taxation policies under American rule, the development of the Philippine tax system has been influenced by both internal governance reforms and external colonial influences. Over time, the country has transitioned from rudimentary forms of revenue collection to more complex and modern systems, incorporating new types of taxes such as income tax, value-added tax, VAT, and excise tax. Understanding this historical context is crucial, as it sheds light on the root causes of current challenges such as tax evasion, inefficient collection methods, and issues in equitable tax distribution. It also provides valuable insights into how past reforms and policy shifts can inform more effective and inclusive taxation strategies moving forward. helping to build a more sustainable fiscal framework for national development. The taxation system in the Philippines has undergone numerous changes and reforms throughout the years in an effort to enhance the efficiency and effectiveness of government revenue collection. These changes were implemented not only to ensure that the government has sufficient funds to support public services and national development, but also to make the system more equitable and responsive to the needs of the Filipino people. Over time, various laws and policies have been introduced to broaden the tax base, reduce loopholes, and modernize collection processes through digital technologies. These reforms reflect the government's continuous efforts to strike a balance between generating enough revenue and minimizing the burden on taxpayers, especially those from low and middle income sectors. Ultimately, the evolution of the taxation system demonstrates the state's commitment to creating a more just, transparent, and inclusive fiscal structure that can adapt to the country's growing and changing socio-economic demands. These are the important reforms. The first is the National Internal Revenue Code of 1997. This is the primary tax law in the Philippines that establishes the fundamental rules, guidelines, and procedures for the assessment and collection of taxes by the government. It serves as the legal framework that governs how taxes are imposed, who is required to pay them, the types of taxes applicable, and how these taxes should be properly collected and remitted. This law is essential in ensuring that the government has a clear and consistent system for generating revenue to fund public services, infrastructure, and national development programs. By setting clear standards and responsibilities for both tax authorities and taxpayers, it promotes transparency, accountability, and fairness in the country's taxation system. For example, because of this law, the rules and guidelines on taxation became much clearer and more organized, providing a more structured approach to how taxes are collected and used. One significant example is the allocation of a portion of the value-added tax, VAT, specifically for essential public services such as education and healthcare. This ensures that the revenue collected from consumers is reinvested into sectors that directly benefit the people, helping improve access to quality education and medical services while promoting transparency in the use of public funds. Second is introduction of value-added tax or VAT. In 1988, one of the largest sources of government revenue comes from the taxes collected from individuals, businesses, and various economic activities. These taxes play a crucial role in funding the operations of the government, including the delivery of essential public services such as education, healthcare, infrastructure, and social welfare programs. Without this steady stream of income, the government would struggle to meet the needs of its citizens and support national development. Therefore, maintaining an efficient and fair taxation system is vital to ensure the continuous flow of resources that sustain the country's growth and stability. For example, when we purchase a product such as rice at the supermarket, the price we pay already includes a 12% value-added tax, VAT, even if we don't always see it clearly on the receipt. This tax is not charged separately at the counter, but is already embedded in the total price of the item. Once collected, the VAT is remitted by the business to the government, helping fund public services and national development programs. And last is Sin Tax Law of 2012. The government increased taxes on cigarettes and alcohol with the primary goal of reducing the consumption of these harmful products and, at the same time, raising additional revenue to support healthcare services. By making these items more expensive through higher excise taxes, the policy aims to discourage people, especially the youth and low-income individuals, from purchasing and using them frequently. This strategy is part of a broader public health campaign to lower the rates of smoking and alcohol-related illnesses in the country. Furthermore, the additional revenue generated from these taxes is allocated to fund vital health programs, including the improvement of hospitals, access to affordable medicine, and the expansion of universal healthcare coverage. This dual approach of promoting better health outcomes while strengthening the healthcare system highlights the government's commitment to the well-being of its citizens. For example, because of the sin tax law, the price of a pack of cigarettes significantly increased from around Philippine peso 30 in 2012 to over Philippine peso 100 today. This substantial rise in cost has made cigarettes less affordable, especially for low-income individuals, leading many Filipinos to reduce their consumption or quit smoking altogether. The law was designed not only to generate additional revenue for the government, but also to promote healthier lifestyles by discouraging the use of tobacco products. As a result, the policy has had a meaningful impact on public health, while also helping to fund essential healthcare services. And now let's proceed to the current issues and trends. These are the current problems in the taxation system. First is tax evasion and avoidance. The government experiences a significant loss of revenue, estimated at nearly 500 billion annually, due to improper tax payments and tax evasion. This shortfall occurs when individuals and businesses either underreport their income, fail to file tax returns on time, or deliberately avoid paying the taxes they owe. Such practices undermine the government's ability to generate sufficient funds needed to support public services, infrastructure projects, and social programs that benefit the population. Additionally, this loss creates a heavier burden on honest taxpayers, who must compensate for the revenue gap, leading to issues of fairness and inefficiency in the tax system. Addressing these challenges is crucial for improving tax compliance and strengthening the overall fiscal health of the country. For example, there are large companies that deliberately conceal their true income in order to evade paying higher taxes. By underreporting their earnings or using complex accounting methods, these companies reduce their taxable income and lower the amount of tax they owe to the government. This practice not only deprives the government of much-needed revenue, but also creates an unfair advantage over smaller businesses that comply with tax regulations honestly. Second is ineffective tax collection. Although the government has introduced online filing systems to make tax payment more convenient and accessible, many taxpayers still fail to pay their taxes accurately or on time. Some individuals lack awareness or understanding of the proper procedures, while others intentionally misreport their income or expenses to reduce their tax liability. Technical issues, limited access to digital tools, and insufficient taxpayer education also contribute to the problem. As a result, the effectiveness of tax collection remains a challenge, hindering the government's ability to generate sufficient revenue for public programs and services. Improving compliance requires not only better enforcement but also continuous efforts in taxpayer education and system improvement. For example, many small businesses in the Philippines operate without proper registration with the Bureau of Internal Revenue, BIR, which means they are not included in the formal tax system. As a result, these businesses do not pay the correct amount of taxes, depriving the government of valuable revenue that could be used for public services and development programs. This situation also creates an uneven playing field, as registered businesses are required to comply with tax regulations, while unregistered ones avoid such obligations. Addressing this issue involves promoting tax awareness, simplifying the registration process, and strengthening enforcement to encourage more small businesses to operate legally and responsibly. And last is effects of globalization and digitalization. With the rise of globalization and digitization, many businesses have transitioned to online platforms to reach a wider market and adapt to modern consumer behavior. E-commerce, online selling, and digital services have rapidly expanded, especially in recent years. However, this shift has also presented new challenges for the government in terms of tax regulation and enforcement. Not all online businesses are registered or properly monitored, which leads to gaps in tax collection. and allows some to operate without paying the correct taxes. This situation creates unfair competition between compliant and non-compliant businesses and reduces the potential revenue that the government could use for national development. Strengthening digital tax policies and improving monitoring mechanisms are essential to ensure that all businesses, whether physical or online, contribute their fair share to the economy. For example, in the past, online sellers operating on platforms such as Lazada and Shopee were not subject to taxation, allowing them to sell products without the same financial obligations faced by traditional brick-and-mortar stores. This created an imbalance in the market, as physical businesses were required to pay taxes, while many online sellers operated without contributing to government revenue. To address this disparity and promote fairness, there is now a proposal to impose taxes on online sellers as well. This move aims to level the playing field, ensure equal treatment across all types of businesses, and boost tax collection efforts in the growing digital economy. And now, these are the current trends. First is electronic tax filing. Paying taxes has become much easier and more convenient with the introduction and widespread use of online platforms. Taxpayers can now file their returns, make payments, and access important information from the comfort of their homes or offices without the need to visit government offices physically. This digital transformation has significantly reduced the time and effort required to comply with tax obligations, encouraging more people and businesses to fulfill their responsibilities promptly. Additionally, online systems help improve accuracy and transparency in tax processing, minimizing errors and the chances of fraud. Overall, the shift to online tax payment platforms represents a major step forward in modernizing the country's tax administration and making it more efficient and user-friendly. For example, through the eBUR system, employees now have the convenience of paying their taxes electronically using platforms such as GCash or online banking. This eliminates the need to physically visit the Bureau of Internal Revenue (BIR) office, saving time and effort for taxpayers. The digital payment option not only streamlines the tax payment process, but also helps promote better compliance by making it easier and more accessible for individuals to fulfill their tax obligations. Second is taxation on digital services. In October 2024, the Philippines officially began imposing taxes on international tech companies, including popular platforms such as Netflix, Facebook Ads, and Google services. This marked a significant step in the country's efforts to modernize its tax system and adapt to the realities of the digital economy. By taxing these global digital service providers, the government aims to ensure that foreign companies generating income from Filipino consumers contribute their fair share of revenue. This initiative helps level the playing field between local businesses and multinational corporations while also expanding the country's tax base. The move is expected to increase government funds that can be used to support public services and infrastructure, reflecting a broader global trend towards taxing digital transactions more effectively. For example, the 12% VAT imposed on Netflix subscriptions is a strategic move by the government to ensure that international companies earning income from Filipino consumers contribute their fair share of taxes. This initiative reflects the growing recognition that digital services, even when provided by foreign companies, are part of the local economy and should be subject to the same tax rules as domestic businesses. By implementing this tax, the government not only increases its revenue base, but also promotes fairness and accountability in the rapidly growing digital marketplace. It also sets a precedent for taxing other online platforms and services that operate within the country, helping to build a more inclusive and equitable taxation system. And now let's discuss the case studies. First is Sin Tax Law. Sin Tax Law is a policy in the Philippines that imposes higher taxes on harmful products such as cigarettes, tobacco, and alcoholic beverages to reduce their consumption. The revenue generated from these taxes is used to fund public healthcare services, particularly the Universal Healthcare Program. For example, because of this law, the budget for PhilHealth significantly increased, allowing more Filipinos to access affordable healthcare services. It also provided additional funding for the treatment of diseases caused by smoking, helping ease the burden on both patients and the healthcare system. Second is tax incentives for businesses. Tax incentives for businesses are special benefits or reductions in taxes granted by the government to encourage investment, job creation, and economic growth. These incentives may include income tax holidays, reduced tax rates, exemptions from certain taxes, or deductions for specific expenses such as research and development or training. By offering these incentives, the government aims to attract both local and foreign investors, promote business expansion, and support key industries that contribute to national development. For example, companies that invest in renewable energy sources like solar and wind power are granted tax holidays by the government. This incentive is designed to attract more investments in sustainable energy and support the country's shift toward cleaner and greener technologies. And last is VAT on digital services. The VAT on digital services is a law in the Philippines that imposes a 12% value-added tax on digital services consumed within the country, including those provided by foreign companies like Netflix and Google. This ensures that both local and international digital service providers pay taxes fairly, helping to modernize the tax system and increase government revenue. For example, taxation on digital services generated an additional Philippine peso 18 billion in government revenue during its first year of implementation. This significant increase highlights the effectiveness of the tax in capturing income from the growing digital economy. Now let's proceed to the challenges and problems. The challenges in Philippine fiscal administration: corruption, weak enforcement, the informal sector, and lack of political will lead to reduced government revenue, hindering investment in crucial sectors, slowing economic growth, increasing inequality, and eroding public trust. Addressing these requires institutional strengthening, improved tax administration, and policies promoting formalization. For example, let's imagine a barangay in the Philippines. There is a market where many vendors sell their goods, but most of them do not pay the correct taxes due to the lack of strict law enforcement. This is part of the informal sector. Because of this, the barangay's income is small, resulting in insufficient funds to repair roads, schools, and hospitals. There is also corruption in the handling of the barangay's funds, causing money that should have been used for projects to end up in the pockets of dishonest officials. These are examples of the challenges faced in public fiscal administration. To solve these problems, stricter tax collection, fighting corruption, and helping those in the informal sector become part of the formal economy are needed. All of this requires strong political will. Next thing we will talk about is proposed solution. Strengthening tax enforcement, improving transparency, modernizing systems, and implementing equitable tax policies will increase government revenue, fund public services, and foster economic growth. These reforms require sustained political will and commitment. Strengthening the enforcement of tax laws and increasing penalties for tax evasion. This involves increasing the number of tax auditors, utilizing modern technologies to detect tax evasion, and imposing heavier fines and penalties on individuals or businesses caught concealing their income. Improving transparency and accountability in the tax system. This includes publishing details of the government's budget and spending, establishing independent audit bodies, and granting the public the right to examine the government's financial records. Modernization of the tax collection system through technology. This involves the use of online filing and payment systems, implementation of electronic tax registration, and development of digital platforms to facilitate communication between the government and taxpayers. Implementation of fairer and more progressive tax policies. This includes increasing taxes on luxury goods and the income of the wealthy, lowering taxes on basic necessities for the poor, and providing tax incentives to businesses that create jobs and contribute to national development. These are the best practices. EBIR system. The EBIR system is an example of a modern tax administration system that speeds up and simplifies the tax payment process. Taxpayer education. Providing information and education to taxpayers about tax laws and their rights is essential in promoting a transparent and fair taxation system. These are the benefits of effective public financial management. Higher government revenue, better funding for public services such as education, healthcare, and infrastructure. Faster economic development, more equitable distribution of wealth, and increased public trust in the government. The implementation of these solutions requires continuous political will and commitment from the country's leaders. A strong and efficient system of public financial management is essential for achieving a more prosperous and equitable Philippines. And now, let us move on to our conclusion. In the end, the future of the Philippines depends on a strong and efficient tax system. It is not just a duty but an investment in a more prosperous and equitable society. Immediate actions, modernization, strict law enforcement, and the honesty of every citizen are the key to achieving this. There is no other path to a thriving Philippines than a solid financial foundation. And now, this is the end of our discussion. I hope you have learned something. That's all, and thank you very much.